Hello and welcome to today's webinar from Axio Proficiency Testing. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is James Sizer and I'm the Global Senior Brand Manager for Axio Proficiency Testing. And it's my great pleasure today to be joined by Dominic Hasson, the Business Development Manager, and Anne Gore, the Technical Manager for Clinical Proficiency Testing here at Axio. Today's webinar is entitled Beyond Accreditation, and how clinical laboratories can utilise proficiency testing reports to optimise performance. We've got some great content to work our way through today, so very much looking forward to hearing from our speakers. Before we get started, just a quick note to say that you are able to submit questions for today's webinar, so you can do that using the questions function of GoToWebinar. What we will do is we will seek to have a questions and answers session at the end of today's session. If we run out of time, any questions will be addressed directly in response following the webinar. So please be assured that anything you ask, you will get your answers to. So we're going to get started pretty much straight away. So you're going to hear first from Dominic and then Anne on today's subject. I think we've got some great work. So Dominic, this one is over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, James, and welcome everybody who has connected today. During the course of today's webinar, we will look at the benefits of proficiency testing as part of a quality management system. We will take a brief look at our portal platform to input and access data. We will provide a brief overview of our reports and how to interpret the results. And to conclude, we will discuss actions to optimize performance based on your PT results. ISO 17043 tells us that proficiency testing, also known as EQA for external quality assessment, is the use of inter-laboratory comparisons for the determination of laboratory performance. The primary aim of proficiency testing is to provide the infrastructure for a laboratory to monitor and improve the quality of its routine analytical measurements. Clinical laboratories participating in ISO 17043 programs may often be striving towards ISO 15189 accreditation. ISO 15189 accreditation is the international standard that specifies and outlines the requirements for quality and competence in medical laboratories. This standard clearly states that a laboratory should participate in an external quality assessment scheme, which in turn should be internationally accredited. LGC Axio programs are accredited to the ISO 17043 standard, accrediting bodies including both UCAS and A2LA. Here we can see some of the key benefits of EQA participation for the clinical laboratory. Performance comparison with laboratories from around the globe helps us to compare like with like. Trend monitoring is an invaluable tool which will assist with performance improvement as we look at any lab test over a period of time to take both corrective and preventative action. Competency, not just of the assay being tested, but our analysts are also being assessed for continuous improvement and development needs. We can closely evaluate our methods and procedures in place. Close scrutiny of our PT results will help us decide if these are the best methods or they can be improved upon. Third parties will also be interested in the quality standards the laboratory is adhering to, such as accreditation bodies, regulatory bodies, and not least the medical staff that are ordering the lab tests for their patients. Improving the quality of laboratory medicine service is an essential requirement for better patient care and clinical outcomes. It is convenient to consider the total process as a series of steps on a quality ladder. So the quality ladder, which we're considering, includes various steps to improved quality control. From the bottom step, we can observe internal quality control, which will be that quality control material run daily on the instruments we're seeking to monitor. Typically, there can be two types: first-party quality control or third-party, sometimes called independent controls. Our EQA will typically be run monthly or at another suitable frequency to monitor our accuracy against that of our peers. Local networks and bodies are very useful to ensure that, along with our peers, we're all working to high standards. We often see similar testing platforms within the same country, for example. Oftentimes labs are required or could be mandated to have membership with their national laboratory associations. The international network will provide access to a wider peer group with a variety of testing platforms for comparison. Accreditation schemes may vary country to country and may have their own national accrediting agencies or standards. The quality management system brings all these component parts together, and for some labs that will mean obtaining the ISO 15189 accreditation status. Many stages on the quality ladder are interconnected. For example, a laboratory may be using a third-party internal quality control material, will participate in an international EQA program, and be member of a national or international clinical laboratory association. The accrediting or auditing inspectors generally will look favorably on those labs that are involved in most, if not all, of the steps on the quality ladder. So what does the LGC Axio offering look like for clinical PT? Here we can see the major groupings of programs available. This is a very extensive range which covers the major laboratory testing areas. Within our clinical chemistry range, for example, we have 11 programs covering almost 200 analytes. Our clinical chemistry immunoassay combined program, for example, has 96 analytes, including the major therapeutic drugs and medication and immunoassay analytes. Our range of hematology programs covers the basic hematology and the more advanced 5-part differential program, as well as a number of virtual programs, including blood cell identification. We also have immunology and microbiology for both culture and molecular platforms. We have available the more topical SARS-CoV-2 programs for PCR, antibody, and antigen testing. Additionally, we offer specialist programs for toxicology, therapeutic drug monitoring, immunosuppressants, and drugs of abuse. Within this range of programs, we offer excellent opportunities for consolidation of samples to meet the individual laboratory's needs. Our schemes provide other key benefits, such as high quality material. We have human-based plasma, where possible, to simulate real lab testing scenarios. In our immunosuppressant schemes, for example, we use real human whole blood or plasma. We use pooled patient samples, which is important because the lab can view how their methods function with metabolites present with the parent compound. In our drugs in urine, we use real human urine, not synthetic material. Periodically, we will have urine from drug users in order to get more metabolites. We aim to offer samples at clinically relevant levels and present samples that will reflect and challenge the testing reality of a clinical laboratory. So where do we operate and store all of this lab quality information? On Portal. This is our easy access reporting platform, which aims to make life easier for the laboratory by making all the relevant information available in one place. Portal is an in-house developed proficiency testing software hosted and backed by Amazon Web Services. Just by way of interest, Amazon Web Services also powers Netflix, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Portal provides all LGC participants with 24/7 access to results, reports, and trend analysis tools. It is GDPR compliant for data privacy regulations. Full Portal training and resources are available, but just a couple of snapshots here just to get an idea of how it looks. The event calendar, which you're observing on screen, allows you to easily see upcoming EQA rounds. We can track packages, we can access scheme documentation, including our reports. This makes it easy for lab staff to see when results need to be submitted, and managers can oversee those important key logistical and organizational dates. Color coding assists the user, where blue in this case indicates a report is available, green indicates the program has been dispatched, and red indicates a result entry deadline. We can also access the displayed features shown in this view by simply clicking, which will give us entry to a report, for example. Within the report section, we have an initial visual assessment for the performance. Again, our unique traffic light system helps us here. The traffic light system we're going to look at in a little more depth later. This is a good example of where we have 7 results reported for this particular scheme, shown in the blue box. And fortunately, in this case, we have 7 satisfactory results, shown in the green box. The reality is that over time, we will have both orange and red results, which will require our attention. So how easy is it to configure an assay and enter a result? Quite straightforward, really. This slide is showing an easy assay configuration setup, in this case for carbamazepine analyte, which is in our therapeutic drugs program. It's really just as simple as assigning a reference to the assay, selecting the primary method and the instrument we're using for the assay. This configuration will be held for the next reporting month also. Thinking about reports, laboratories must review their analyte reports and accurately identify which analytes are and which analytes are not performing to satisfactory levels. If I can hand over to my colleague and our technical support manager, Anne Gore, who's going to take a closer look at our reports. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Dominic. First, I'd like to say hello and thank you for attending. As Dominic stated, the analyte report provides a comprehensive overview of laboratory performance for each analyte. This is the most useful report for laboratories when they want to look at their performance. Laboratories will receive an email notification when a report is available for download. These are typically issued within 6 working days. To see the report that LGC offers, you must first log on to Portal with your unique sign-in details. Once signed in, you can see the selection options for Main Report, Individual Report, Analyte Report, and Performance Reports. These are some useful tools available in all of the reports. However, I'm going to focus on the Analyte Report for this webinar. Displayed here is the first page of the Analyte Report. The Analyte Report is broken into 5 sections that I've designated here. The slide provides you a snapshot of the entire first page, but I'm going to review these 5 sections in the upcoming slides. The first portion of the Analyte Report provides a summary of your reported results per instrument. You can see that this report displays 2 instruments, instrument reference B and C, along with their corresponding results, performance score, type of performance score, and % difference between your results and the assigned value. The performance score is color-coded for ease of assessment. In the lower right-hand corner of this slide, I've added a table which contains the performance score ranges and their interpretations for you to correlate the green and amber status that are shown on this slide. Instrument B has a performance score of less than 2, which is why it's displayed in green, whereas instrument C has a performance score of negative 2.02, so it is amber to correlate with a questionable result. The statistical portion of the Analyte Report provides information on how the assessment was determined. The assigned value is best estimate of the analyte's true value for your method. Criteria for determining the assigned value is based on the analyte. For CLS, the assigned value is typically the robust mean or median of the results. The assigned value derived by section indicates which peer group you're being assessed against. And then when the assigned value is determined by the consensus of participant results, uncertainty can be calculated based on the standard deviation and the number of participant results included in the data set. We provide this value in the uncertainty of assigned value section. The standard deviation of proficiency assessment, or SDPA, varies depending upon the analyte. Information regarding how the SDPA is derived is available in our scheme description. All SDPA values are set in accordance with ISO 13528. The satisfactory range is plus or minus 2 times the SDPA from the assigned value. And then lastly, the percentage of results in your peer group that are satisfactory, questionable, and unsatisfactory is provided to provide a snapshot of your peer group's performance. The results statistics table provides information on the number of reported results, number of excluded results, mean, median, standard deviation, and robust SD for your peer group. Extreme results or outliers should not be included in statistical analysis of the data. Results that are outside of the assigned values range or plus or minus 5 times the SDPA will be excluded when calculating these statistics. This table is nice because it provides participants with information as to how many results were excluded in the calculations. All results, including those excluded, will be provided with performance scores. And then the histogram section provides the distribution of results for your specific reported method in blue, whereas the green portion of the histogram displays the distribution of all results. To assist you with determining where your result falls on this graph, we indicate a V above the column and correspond with your result. And then next is a summary of your last 9 performance scores and a chart view for each instrument that you reported. Your method, instrument reference value indicated by letters B and C in this picture, and the performance score with corresponding round is available. The RAG display provides a quick assessment for satisfactory, questionable, and unsatisfactory results. And finally, at the bottom of the first page are our trending graphics. The first graphic provides trending over time by round to display any issues or bias over time. The data is shown for the current round and the previous 11 rounds. The trend graphics allow for multiple instrument reporting. You can see in this picture, instrument reference B is designated by the blue circles, whereas instrument reference C is indicated by the blue diamonds. And the second graphic provides assigned value trending. The performance scores are plotted by analyte concentration, enabling you to identify any issues or bias across low, mid, or high concentration levels. This is one of the most useful graphs because it can display a bias at a specific analyte level. You can see that the assigned value of 32, which I've circled in red, there's an aqua diamond right on the edge of the amber section in the graph. One data point is not generally anything to be concerned about, but multiple aqua diamonds in the lower amber section is an indication that that lab could be running low at that particular level and should trigger an investigation. Similar to the other graphic, data is provided for the current and previous 11 rounds for each instrument that you report. The second page of the analyte report provides summaries by methodology. Participants can view their methods versus other methods for each reported analyte. Summary statistics at the top for the top 9 reported methods plus your reported method are provided for review. I'll go into more detail regarding the box and whisker plot on the next slide, but I would like to point out there's a technical commentary as needed is provided right below the box and whisker plot. I highly recommend reviewing this. It can be helpful if there are any items to note about the recovery between various methods for the sample. The box and whisker plot provides a nice visual of methodology variance. The top 9 methods plus your reported method are available for display. The box for each method represents the middle 50% of the results reported. The line drawn across the box is the median. The lower edge of the box is drawn at the first quartile, and the upper edge is drawn at the third quartile. The horizontal lines above and below each box represent the highest and lowest acceptable results reported. The vertical line, or what we call whiskers, connects these values to the box to show the spread of the outer 50% of the results. Values that fall outside these ranges are excluded. As a former laboratory manager, I often ask myself the question, what do laboratories want from their reports? Important items included are quality measure for accuracy and precision, a comparison with performance limits. This allows participants to understand the acceptable variance per analyte, and an indication of what other laboratories achieve for both their method and other available methods. Performance assessment is designed to compare an observed error and a target range. An observed error is the difference between the laboratory result and the assigned value. The target range is generally a standard deviation, but in some instances, uncertainty is included in the assessment. An acceptability criteria is established to provide laboratories with guidance on how they performed with their reported result. LGC provides two values, the assigned value and the standard deviation for proficiency assessment. Participants can use both of these values to see how far they vary from the target. They can look at the target range to see if they are within acceptable limits and determine if they are on the high or low end of the range. Our schemes have specific statistical protocols to establish how a result will be assessed. We describe how the assigned value and SDPA are established and how the performance statistics are calculated. The underlying distribution of the data for most schemes is assumed to be normal. It can be common for data to be contaminated with heavy tails and small proportion of outliers. Outliers that are plus or minus 5 times the SDPA are considered gross errors, and results are not used in calculation of the statistics. Heavy tails can be a difference between methodologies, which is one reason grading may be done at an individual method level versus all methods. Analyzing the underlying distribution is part of the statistical assessment. In the next few slides, I will describe how we obtain our individual statistics. As shown on an earlier slide, the assigned value is the best estimate of the actual concentration of the analyte. Several methods can be used to determine the assigned value. Sample formulation, use of a certified reference material, results from an established reference laboratory, and consensus value from expert laboratories are viable options. Lastly, a commonly used method for determining the assigned value is by calculating consensus from values from participant results. ISO 13528 describes this as statistical methods for use in proficiency testing by interlaboratory comparisons. The SDPA, or Standard Deviation for Proficiency Assessment, defines the scale of acceptable variation among participants. Several methods for determining the SDPA are used as described in ISO 13528. These methods include by perception of experts, by experience from previous rounds of a proficiency scheme, by use of a general model, using repeatability and reproducibility standard deviations from a previous collaborative study of a measurement method's precision, and from data obtained from the same round of a proficiency testing scheme. It is all very well to calculate these differences each time between laboratory result and the assigned value, but to make it easy for laboratories to understand their performance, the best thing to do is to convert that into some form of a performance score. At LGC, we generally use the Z-score and the Z-prime score. Zeta scores would rarely be used in clinical schemes, however, I will explain all three since these are internationally recognized approaches. The Z-score is calculated by subtracting the assigned value from your individual result and dividing by the SDPA. This is to normalize data points so that the average is 0. You can see the performance is assigned a Z-score less than or equal to 2 indicates a satisfactory performance. Z-score greater than 2 but less than 3 indicates a questionable performance. And finally, Z-scores greater than or equal to 3 indicate unsatisfactory performance. The Z-prime score is similar to the Z-score, but is used when the standard of uncertainty of an assigned value is greater than 0.3 times the SDPA. The Z-prime score is calculated with an expanded SDPA using the formula shown to account for the larger uncertainty of an assigned value. A low uncertainty indicates a more precise method in clinical measurement. Different analytes have various levels of acceptability. For example, you would expect a more precise measurement for pH than you would for vitamin D. And then zeta scores are not generally used in clinical proficiency testing. They're provided when participants report their own expected uncertainty around their result. It adds their uncertainty to the uncertainty of the assigned value to provide a score. Clinical labs do not use uncertainty often because they use clinical or normal ranges, which is a plus or minus around their own result. If a clinical scheme was appropriate to report your uncertainty, then a zeta score would be used. When interpreting performance in any round of a proficiency testing scheme, there are a number of factors which need to be considered to enable the performance. There are 5 major points to consider. The overall results in the round. How did everyone else perform? Is there a wide distribution of the results? Reliability of the assigned value. How many participants were in your peer group? Performance of the test method. Is this a particular method of variable? Is there any known interference in the patient samples? Test item factors. Was the correct sample analyzed for the correct tests? And then PT scheme factors. Is this sample appropriate for my method? Some instruments require a specific sample to work with their methodology. Does your testing scheme require this? When you need to evaluate your performance, first look at the overall results in the PT round. The tables and the graphics should help provide an overview of the round. We reviewed the Analyte report thoroughly. However, the information available in both the individual and the main reports can help. The technical commentary can be of great assistance as well. Has your laboratory's performance generally been good, but you've received a poor score? It's helpful to review the performance of your peer group and the other peer groups. The number of participants in your peer group can be helpful when determining the reliability of the assigned value. If you are the only participant reporting for your method, is there a bias between the methods? The z-score range on the histogram that is available on the main report is helpful to see the overall performance of the analytes for the sample. This histogram indicates good performance for the majority of the participants by the nice distribution that is displayed. Labs that fell in the amber and red areas are likely to have a lab issue. Looking at the tables and graphs can help you understand your performance in context. As you review the information, ask yourself these questions. Do the results show a trend? How reliable is the assigned value? Do the results display poor agreement? Is my result unique or common? And then be sure to read the commentary available in the reports. Trending is one of the most valuable tools in interpreting PT results. If you're actively trending your results and participating at a regular frequency, trending can act as an early warning sign, alerting you to issues prior to having inaccurate results on routine test samples. The graphics in the reports provide an easy view of trends over time by concentration versus the table of results. These tools are available to help you determine how reliable your results are. And then trending can also be useful at the analyst level. One benefit we offer at LGC is allowing multiple results to be submitted for the same set of test materials. This is something you may want to consider, as it is not always an option. It provides you with the ability to compare analysts' results over time or within a single round. This can help highlight a bias to differentiate between lab issues from technician issues and to provide a measurement of competency. Here's an example of trending results over time with multiple analysts. Each analyst is representative by the different colored dots. An investigation would be required for the z-score that's outside of the positive or -3 bias, is in the case that's highlighted with the gold dot in the round CH276. And on the next slide, We will show you an example of looking at laboratory results trending over time. The guidance is that one questionable result with a z-score between 2 and 3 doesn't require action. However, as shown, 2 consecutive questionable results would need to be addressed. In this case, we can assume the lab investigated and made a correction. As you can see, subsequent results were in the satisfactory range. These trending graphs are extremely helpful in investigating unsatisfactory performance within your laboratory. Unsatisfactory performance is something that Dominic will be covering for the rest of the webinar. I've completed everything that I want to show you in the reports, but now it's time for me to turn this over to Dominic. Thank you for your attention.
Excellent. Thank you, Anne. Once an issue has been identified, the next step that we must take is to investigate. Causes of unsatisfactory performance can be grouped into 3 main areas. Firstly, clerical issues, which could be something as simple as a transcription error, a measuring unit discrepancy, a calculation error, or perhaps incorrectly applying a conversion factor. Secondly, there may be actual technical issues. Examples of these could be instrument-related, assay calibration, reagents, training, or something procedural related, such as the storage or pre-treatment of the test material. Finally, there may be issues related to the PT scheme. These could be a matrix incompatibility between the PT test material and the instrument method, or target analyte concentrations being outside the scope of the method, either being too sensitive or too high. Where the issue is more likely to be internal to the laboratory, as we can see on our next slide, we should consider a troubleshooting process to identify the root cause of the quality control issue that we're having. Kaoru Ishikawa, famed for his user-friendly total quality control theories, asked that we use the 6 M's to narrow down to a potential root cause. The 6 M's shown here on screen suggest some of the more common issues found in each of the component parts. The 6 M's here being materials and machine or equipment, measurement and methods, management or personnel, and Mileo, Mother Nature, that's your immediate environment that you're testing in. So within materials, we could be looking at issues such as a defective sample, an incorrect sample has been tested, the reagents. At the machine or equipment or instrument level, it could be an issue with the instrument in terms of maintenance or lack of, the different component parts of the instrument. For measurement, we need to be looking at calibration, the frequency, the latest calibration, the results, the process of calibration. Our internal quality control material will also provide some clues as to the previous performance since our last proficiency testing event. The methods that we're adopting in the laboratory, are we following standard operational procedure? Are these procedures updated and followed by our staff? Is that procedure written? Is it available to all staff to consult? And in terms of the team, the crew, if you like, that are working in the laboratory, are they trained and competent? How are they entering results? And the process of interpretation, how are they actually printing off and reviewing these results? The atmosphere, the temperature, all those prevailing factors that may exist for a laboratory are important. The storage conditions, the temperature of analysis, how long it's sitting on the bench top in the laboratory before it's analyzed. Are we following the instructions for use that is provided with the material? These are all important factors that we've grouped in this case into the 6 M's of possible root cause. On our next slide, we can see this a little bit more visually with, again, Ishikawa's fishbone cause analysis diagram. This is helpful. I've made a few notes here of some of the, I suppose, more basic possible causes, just for illustration, but there could be many more influencing causes which could be added to this fishbone diagram. Root cause analysis is a structured, not an individual, but a structured team process that assists in identifying all the underlying factors or causes of an adverse event. Understanding all the contributing factors or causes of a system failure can help develop actions that sustain the correction. Now we're working within a quality framework. Once we have identified that we have an issue, a corrective action will be required and should be documented, but how do we locate the potential issue? Shown on these slides, we can see what a typical troubleshooting checklist might look like. Within the laboratory's quality management system, this will be a formal questionnaire type document which staff should follow. Typically, the checklist will guide the user from the more typical non-conformance issues through to the more challenging potential causes. Whilst we're not showing the specific corrective action to take, these are the questions that, once answered, will lead us to identifying the corrective action to implement. For example, looking at sample handling, are we physically inspecting each vial that arrives to check that it is integral? That, for example, there is no lysing of whole blood, no leakage, no cracked vials, which could all potentially contaminate the sample. If we identify the cause, we will apply the corrective action and record the event. If not effective, select another corrective action or revisit the root cause. All actions or reasons for taking no actions must be documented. Again, on screen we can see from sample handling being the more typical or common errors that we could encounter, through to clerical, incorrect results being entered, wrong usage of the decimal point or the comma, conversion factors being applied incorrectly, etc. The configuration and registration, are we correctly comparing ourselves in the appropriate peer group? Looking at internal quality control, has our internal quality control shown around the same time as our PT, our monthly program, shown some kind of shift or bias? Does the internal quality control, does it show something different? Does it reflect the change in our PT at that same period, for example? Normally, the conclusion of the investigation will provide the answer to what the corrective action should be, which may include remedial actions such as a recalibration of an instrument service or maintenance. New media or reagents may be required. Updated methods may be suggested or introduced, procedures or further staff training. The lab manager in each case should be reviewing this EQA performance checklist document or procedure when faced each time with non-conformance. To conclude this section, interpreting EQA results should not be as simple as just reviewing the individual report and hoping for the best. EQA is best utilized within the wider quality management system. When we have an unsatisfactory result, they should be considered in context of all the information available, thoroughly investigated to find the root cause, and all corrections documented. A formal written checklist or process can help with this. When results are reviewed across a period of time, taking trends into consideration will also help. All feedback is used in a constructive manner to improve the overall process. EQA reports ultimately are a tool to help improve laboratory quality standards, and as such we should apply preventative action which is intended to prevent occurrence of non-conformance. Let me pass back to James for some closing remarks, and thank you.
Thank you, Dominic, and thank you, Anne. So I think it's worth just, before we get stuck into some questions, just quickly touching upon some of the other things that are worth knowing about Axio. So firstly, you can find out more about our clinical offering as well as our other sector offerings from Axio at our website, which is lgcstandards.com/Axio. But of course, by all means, contact us directly. One of the quickest ways you can do that is at our email address, axio@lgcgroup.com. But similarly, we also have local support across an international network. So again, at our website, you will find the contact details that may be most relevant to you and your laboratory. We are here to help. We're keen to hear from you and about your needs. So although we can present our offering to you today in terms of all the great range of clinical schemes and samples that we have for you, our development is always busy, and we are always informed by the latest information coming from our customers and our participants. So please do get in touch with us. It's a key part of what we do and what keeps us thriving and keeps us interested in your work. So The other thing I'd like to say is that obviously it goes without saying that the clinical world is ever evolving, and this means that new samples and new analytes and new tests are added all the time. So it is worth staying in touch with us on social media, because both on LinkedIn and on Twitter, you can find Axio, just search for Axio Proficiency Testing or LGC Axio. And this is where we put a great deal of our information about anything new coming out, so we can keep you really up to date with everything that's going on in the proficiency testing world in general, but especially how we're serving clinical laboratories around the world. So there was a lot of content in that. So just a quick note that in 24 hours time, you will receive an email as a registrant to today's webinar containing a link to this recording should you want to rewatch and maybe learn some of the content in a little bit more detail. So please do look forward to that and keep an eye out for it in your inbox. We do have a couple of questions before we close out today. So Anne and Dominic, I'm hoping you might be able to help with a couple of these. So one of the questions that we have is around our partnership with API in the US. So the question is, do we plan to synchronize the sample shipment and the report with the API equivalent for instance, the CLS molecular multiplex as blood pathogen, gastro, meningitis, etc. panels, a kind of WW testing and reporting. And I think this is possibly one for you. Are we synchronizing across Axio into API equivalent?
We're actually fairly synchronized with the current shipments. Previous years we were not, but this year we did, just because these are fairly complex panels. So we wanted to be able to provide participants across the world with the same sample. So they are fairly synchronized within those shipments as of 2021.
Great, thank you. Isabel, I hope that answered your question, but if you would like any more detail, again, please do get in touch with us directly and we'd be happy to give you all the information you need. So another question that's come in is, do we cancel or postpone a program if there is a low number of enrolled participants? I think we'll break this question. So we'll start with that, which is a common question of PC providers. Dominic, is that something that you can speak to?
Yeah, so well, as we're starting out, James, it hasn't become an issue so far. The programs that have been more successful or sought after are the bigger programs, the chemistry, hematology, etc., etc. Well, at the moment we're not really encountering that. There would be towards the end of each year a review of the participation numbers, etc. And within each program, there's also the possibility to review or compare pairs that are similar, meaning if the participation was lower, how can we widen it to make the comparison relevant, etc. But again, it's something, you know, PT, the basis of it is that you must have somebody to compare yourself against, otherwise it's kind of pointless participating. So we're always making the efforts to bring on as many people as possible. But again, towards the end of each cycle, these kind of factors or influences are reviewed.
Yeah, and I think that probably helps answer the second part of the question, which was how would our participant evaluate results if no Z-score or assigned value is provided? Again, I think it's the same answer, isn't it, Dominic?
Yeah, it looks, I mean, listening to the section that Anne provided on the three types of the three Z scores or Z scores, there were different types. One, I think, was the with the consensual mean and the expert panels, etc. So it looks as if there's some kind of flexibility built into that to ensure that if the numbers of participation is lower, then there's a different type of Z score, and Anne can confirm here, I'm sure, a different type of Z score could be used to score the performance of that particular laboratory.
Yes, there's other ways we can determine an assigned value if we do have low participant numbers. Some of that is based on, we can, for some of these reference materials, we can use a certified reference material. We can also use what we call expert laboratories. So we do have some options that allow us to be able to score these laboratories. And the other thing is if it's a low participation just for their specific methodology, they can compare themselves against peers that are in other methodologies to see how they perform compared to other testing systems. So there's several different ways laboratories can still utilize the report.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think we've got most things covered in that sense. We have been asked a specific question about distribution in India. Dominic, can you answer that one? Is that one that we need to go back to directly on?
Distribution in India, depending if the question's coming from a laboratory or a potential distributor, I'm more than happy offline to deal with that. If it's sent across to me, I can provide a very quick route to market solution there. That's not a problem at all. Yeah,
Thank
just
you.
pass that straight across.
Manava, we will get back in touch with you directly. I have a question here from Layla. Do control charts rules applicable on the trend chart? So I think it's, yeah, do control chart rules apply to the trend chart?
They have kind of a similar aspect to them. You know, a control chart, you would not want to be, we generally with a control chart, they're a little bit more applicable to like a Levin-Jennings chart. I think that's what they're referring to. And they're a little bit similar. However, controls don't always span across the entire clinical range. Our samples do. So with the proficiency testing, you can identify an issue that your laboratory may be having at a different range than you may not be able to identify with your controls. I think that helps answer that question. So they're looked at a little bit differently in that aspect.
Great, thank you. I think Layla, if we've not quite got the gist of your question exactly right there, again, just drop us an email or a phone call, and we will get back to you with a bit more detail, and we can hopefully answer any questions you might have. So I think the next question is diving into probably the detail on one of the slides, and it's why was the accepted range lower than that of the estimated range indicated for the PT? So this will be on one of your examples. Is that a particularly challenging question for you, Anne?
No, I don't think so. I'm just I'm looking for the slide to see exactly what slide they're referring to. And part of it may be because some of the slides were actually taken from a few different reports. They were just used for examples. So let's see here. I may have to get back to them on that.
No problem at all. So Joe, Marie, that is something we'll dive into a little bit closer. Just make sure we've got the exact example in front of us. But yeah, it could well be that these are across different examples from our PT schemes. So that may well be the answer, but we'll have a good look and get back to you should there be any clearer answer.
Please, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so that looks to be the majority of the questions for now. So for those of you that we answered the questions on, hopefully we gave you what you needed. For those of you that we maybe still have some follow-up to do, we will come back to you directly. And for anybody else, you know, whether you had time to ask a question today or you go away and think about it some more, as I keep saying, please do stay in touch with us. You know, we love to hear from you. We'd love to learn more about your needs and any questions you might have around Axio proficiency testing, but also, of course, the specific clinical schemes and samples that we have available to you in your laboratory. So with that, really all that's left is for me to say thank you very much. Please do keep an eye out in your inbox for the follow-up email with the link to the recording and the participation certificate. We very much appreciate your time. We know everybody has a lot of demands on them, so thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. And of course, thank you very much to both Dominic and Anne for both the provision of content and joining us today. With that, I'd like to say goodbye and have a fantastic rest of the week, everybody. Take care and goodbye.